Facility Use Committee meeting to order at 5:30. Any corrections to the agenda?
Any corrections to the agenda?
Then I'll move we approve the agenda.
One second.
All in favor? Aye. Receiving a public comment. If there is anyone that would like to speak at this time regarding anything that's not on the agenda, we have the topic for today is obviously, so if there's anything that's not on the agenda you'd like to talk about now, hearing none. We'll move to the next item, which is Facilities Use Handbook Review. And the first item along with that is the high school use and fields. You have a report?
No, I went ahead and updated the last schedule that we had decided to have the athletic fee cost of $10 per hour, minimum 2 hours, $5 every hour after that. I think we should add, if it's for a full day use, maybe coming up with a flat fee that maybe provides a discount rather than having all these people coming and going. That might be a little bit easier. If they're going to use it for the day, it'll be $50. Something, exactly.
Or how about if it's over a certain amount of hours?
There you go.
Okay. Well, let's get into the high school conversation first. We'll come back to that.
Yeah, I did contact the architect from NMR and did inquire about their issues, if any, with warranty. There didn't seem to be any, but he did mention a recommendation of holding off a year for public use. He says the reason not about protecting facilities, but rather about allowing the district time to learn how to use all the systems and equipment before the public has a chance to affect them in any way. He doesn't particularly refer to what part of the facilities. Obviously, fields would not require systems to be used unless it's the equipment of the stadium and the dump that those are used.
Okay, and are there any warranty issues?
It didn't appear to. Talks here also about normal wear and tear, 3-year warranty. Like I said, my recommendation is maybe be careful about the rooms that are being used. But as far as field use, and that's one of our largest topics, I think there should be a limitation on the number of users on that field each month. But
Well, there's multiple fields, right? I mean, we're talking the football field for a lot of
Right.
folks, but there's a soccer field, a gorgeous baseball and softball field, and in the back in the grass. And I wonder if that's maybe what he's referring to when he talks about, systems.
Sorry, Paul. That he might be talking about the watering systems as far as that
There's
stuff
a-
goes more so than the football field.
We have a subcontractor that's doing the maintenance on that field, and there's a number of areas that he has to correct and complete yet. Our efforts on fields are harder right now because we've been asked to cut back on our water use.
What's the estimated time when it's all supposed to be completed, do we know?
All of the fields?
Or the ones you're referring to?
Okay, the stadium fields, that's not going to be released to us until approximately November, December timeframe. The other field in the back where they have the soccer fields, we have to keep in mind that that is right next to Building F, which is still under construction, and will be until the end of the year. And in order to get access to that field, the only place you can come at, you have to go through the contractor's parking lot. And the contractor's parking lot is used as a drop-off point for a lot of materials, and you'll see it sitting in there. So that is a safety issue that we have to be aware of, along with the liability issues.
So we don't even get control of the stadium until November, December?
Until they release it to us, that is correct.
Does that mean we don't even get to use it?
That's going to be limited based on, there has, for an example, the high school has to use special, considerations when they use that field, because they have to go through a construction area to get to the field.
The football field?
Excuse me?
The football field.
That's correct.
Okay.
Because all that outside that field is being used, is being constructed yet.
So, for clarification then, our anticipation is we won't be playing on the field? So,
I don't know what the format is. I know it's not like a board meeting, so.
It's formal but informal.
Yeah, formal but informal. So, I don't know if we haven't talked, because from my information that I've been getting from the builders is that it'll be ready for our first home game in September. And since we'll have students on campus going to and from the stadium, starting on day one of school, it should be ready, and there shouldn't be an issue with a parking lot. I know that the parking lot on the east end of campus, or the east end of campus, may be a staging area, but the student parking lot on Mustang Way is accessible to the football field, and we shouldn't have to be, I mean, if we're going to have students on campus, obviously there are going to be ways for students and spectators. So as far as I understand, the stadium is going to be up and running. We've been told that it'll be up and running for our first football game in September.
So you don't have any plans or provisions for PE classes, for example?
They'll be using it starting on the 20th of August.
Right.
So they'll have supervision, there'll be somebody there that will watch the students using the fields. I guess the only concern we would have is if outside organizations are using the facilities without any supervision, I guess.
Well, but that's.
You're gonna have that problem
Exactly.
after,
After hours.
you know.
So, I mean, you said the first game's in September for football, so I'm guessing there's going to be practicing taking place before that at Lake.
Absolutely.
And they'll be using,
Yeah,
they'll be using the football field for that as well?
this summer they should be using it,
I was saying
yes.
they probably can start in about 4-6 weeks.
Next week, they will be
Starting next week?
conditioning starting next week. They won't be on fields with pads or anything like that, but they're allowed during the period of the summer to do workouts during the summer and do specific skill drills and things like that. Following the CIF rules,
Yeah.
we will have students on campus as soon as they turn the campus over to us.
So then you can go ahead and provide us block periods of time where we should not ever allow an organization to come in because our students come first.
Absolutely,
We have to use those
yeah.
facilities.
We are, I mean, I've got a list of dates and times for both practices and games all the way through the summer and then all the games. You know, from a site principal's point of view, and I kind of come from different points of view, I think that it behooves us as a community. And I understand, I've talked with NMR as well about the warranty issues and things like that. I got the same exact answer.
Exactly.
There is no warranty issue. The issue is, are we comfortable with our procedures that we can tell an outside organization like the Hurricanes, here are the rules that we follow, and if we feel comfortable with that, then, you know, as a community and as a district, our district needs to decide, do we want to support that or not? As a site principal, I'm comfortable with it. I've worked on campuses with turf fields that are heavily used by a community. I would agree that we need to make sure we understand how often it gets used. From what I understand at this point, outside organizations are not asking for an overuse, and I would not advocate for outside organizations to practice on our turf. Our turf will be used enough, but if it's used several times a year for game days and things like that, as a site principal, I would feel comfortable, you know, supporting that. And again, I'm a community member as well. If there's a need for supervision, I live across the street, I'm in the community, and, you know, as far as that goes, I don't see an issue with that, especially if we delineate out, this is what needs to happen, and then ultimately with the facilities use thing is, you break it, you buy it, right? You come into our campus and you walk across the track in your cleats, and you ruin our track, you pay for it. And I think the organizations in our community understand that these are the rules, and if you break the rules, and we're gonna inspect before and after your event, and I think that organizations understand that they're responsible for the site and any damage that happens during that time. Sure. Yeah.
Well, and I'm with you,
Yeah.
I support it 100%,
Yeah.
and I want to see the community be able to use these facilities. That being said, I want to make sure that it's fair and equitable.
Right.
And I want to make sure that we have systems in place to make sure that if there is damage, that we catch it and that we know who's responsible. And
Right.
if those that are responsible compensate us for it.
Right. Well, and we did the training on the field the other day, and there, I mean, a lot of people think, oh, it's field turf, it's no maintenance. Well, that's not true. I think that before and after a field use, as a district, we need to make sure that we've got somebody looking at the field before the use so that we see the state in which the field is, and then we come on afterwards and we take a look at it. You know, if there's issues that have arisen because of misuse of the field, as opposed to just normal wear and tear. For example, if there are sunflower seeds on the field, or if there's gum on the field, or if somebody has dumped Gatorade on the field, or whether there's food on the field. You know, those are the kinds of things that we need to make sure we have in our rules, and then if after an event we go out and we go, look, we told you this, and this is what you did. Not only do you owe us the extra time and money to fix the problem, but in the future you may be barred from use of the field because of your non-compliance with the rules that we've set for it. I feel pretty comfortable working as an administrator of the district because I know the board eventually will approve a facilities use plan. Working as an administrator in the district to develop those and make sure that they're followed to the T. People know me in the community. I am very invested in this, and if somebody comes to our high school and messes it up, you can bet that I will be on somebody's doorstep the next day. So yeah, I think that responsible use, providing guidance, and then allowing the use, and then when there are issues, that's when you address it. But I think that we have the skill set in our district to establish procedures that would benefit the district and the community as well.
Right. Well, that being said, we're here because of the lack of process, and that's what we're trying to formulate now.
Exactly.
We have to have a process, and we want to make sure that, you know, we've talked to all parties, and we have a good recommendation moving forward. So as far as, will the site, what's the security on the site, physical security on the weekends? Are the gates closed? Is the parking lot open? How does that?
Typically, I mean, a campus is closed up on the weekend. Oh, it depends.
I'm just inquiring about how
was the site used?
Access to the fields.
So I don't want to get too deep in it because I know we're going to talk a little bit more about philosophy, but we're coming out of being a K-8 district, which is very used to Friday ends and the teachers go home, and outside of your basketball usage on the weekends, really for the school itself on the weekends, nothing school related typically happens on a weekend. It's usually rental of facilities. At a high school, it's a lot different. You're going to see a high school used pretty much all week through Saturday, and I know that I've recommended to several people before that you have a Sunday dead day for your campus, just to be dead for a day. And CIF rules actually dictate, Sac Joaquin CIF rules dictate that there are no Sunday practices anyway. So it's a good rule of thumb to just say, let's give our site a break for a day. Okay. Outside of your maybe random church that may want to meet in one of your buildings, because that's nice to offer the community. But as far as the other sites, but you'll see high school student extracurricular activities going on the weekends at school sites. That's not normal for K-8, because a lot of these teenagers have ways of getting themselves to school for the fundraiser, or getting themselves, a lot of times organizations will do flea markets where they rent out spots in the parking lot on the weekends, and they do that on a rolling basis throughout a year, and you'll see the mock trial team come in, and you'll see the Interact Club come in on weekends. And then the other thing that you need to realize is our school year in Lammersville Unified School District ends tomorrow, and just like this year, our very first year, that very next week, sports start. And so where we have previously experienced periods in our district of non-use over the summertime, we're moving into an era where, at least at the high school site, you're going to see year-round usage of the site. And summer custodial that happens, sports teams have to work around the redoing of the gym floor and other facilities on campus, and so, but you will see a lot more activity on a high school campus year-round and on weekends than you will with any of your other sites. So it's kind of a change in mindset for our district just because we haven't seen it before. And we're not close to a school where our homes are near somewhere where you see people going in and out of the school all the time. But I guarantee you, you're next to any high school in the Bay Area or in most of the nation, you're going to see lots of activity even on weekends.
So as far as youth football, using the fields, if they're going to be using it on a Sunday, and what do you envision that process being as far as access?
I don't know. I've, like I said, I recommend that you have a dead day. I mean, I don't ever advocate Sunday, but that's a personal thing for me. So, a weekend day, I think that what you're going to see a lot is, and I'm going off of experience in San Jose and Hayward and Pleasanton, is that typically you'll have a custodian working some overtime hours that are being paid because of the fees that you're collecting from organizations. It varies on what the activity is, on how long that person is there during the day, but you'll typically have someone there when there's an outside organization. Sometimes when you have an inside organization, for example, a teacher who's the Interact Club advisor will have their own key and they'll come in and use their classroom or whatever, and it typically doesn't incur there's no custodian needed because they're opening a door for some kids to come in. But when there's an outside organization there, somebody needs to open, right?
Right.
And somebody needs to close.
Well, somebody needs to inspect, I mean, that's.
Yeah, somebody, we need to make sure that beginning and end looks similar,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes there's cleanup that needs to be done. So, and then it just depends on what we decide as a district and how we decide to run all of that.
And that's why we're here. We're trying to get these ideas
Yeah.
out now and try and at least have some recommendations for the board to start the conversation. You know, there's 3 of the board members are going to have their input and their ideas as well, but we at least want to have a starting point. So, and I know, you know, we've been there, done that, so it's a good place for us to start.
Yeah.
You talked about philosophy, Ben, and I'm curious, we're talking a lot about organized activities. What I'm also curious about is what we're talking about as far as access for.
The public?
Yes, I mean, not for nothing, I'm looking forward to running on the track. Are we not gonna leave it open? I'm curious, I don't know what we're going to do, seriously, I want to run on the
I
track.
have not been familiar with opening our facilities on any of the campuses where I've been on the weekends for just open public running on the, I mean, the stadium that we have, again, is an expensive facility that is not necessarily just open to anybody. It's not a park, it's a facility that has to be maintained, and there are specific rules that need to be followed, so no. I wouldn't personally open it. You talk about the all-weather track that we're gonna have, that thing wears. It's rubberized. The more use that it gets, the more it needs to be resurfaced over time. We're even, we have to talk to our own people and saying the PE classes, you can't always run in lane 1. You need to have your class run in lane 7 today. Tomorrow they're going to run in lane 6, So we need to make sure that that we allow access to organized, especially with the turf fields, and typically on a weekend, the campus, not all the gates are going to be unlocked. A teacher might come in, but we ask teachers typically to lock the gate behind them again. It's not an open field, typically like an elementary school field would be.
Are we sure how that stands with the mitigation agreement as far as facilities?
I have no idea. I know high schools are much different. Looking at the other districts that I've worked in, typically elementary school fields are pretty open for public use, but never high school fields.
Different thing.
Mitigation agreements for the K schools all.
That's
Yeah.
Talking about the master plan.
Yeah, we have a master plan. We have, I don't know how this applies to the rules we have with regards to the master plan and how, if it even does apply, because the answer to that is I don't know. And
I understand what you're saying, I agree, you got me.
Well, I mean, you have to realize that in about 2 or 3 years, we're going to be 12, 13, 1,400 students who are taking PE and playing sports. And
doing
while we do have a very
activities.
nice grass field, we only have one grass field for soccer and whatever else, JV football or whatever else is going to be out there. We only have one softball field and one baseball field. A lot of schools have a JV baseball and a varsity baseball and a JV softball and a varsity softball. So I have one of each, and those fields they take a considerable amount of effort, and I'm thinking about a groundskeeper. This campus has more acreage than any school that I've worked at, and it probably has a lot more landscaping. And the schools that I've worked at, we've always had a full-time groundskeeper, not a maintenance and grounds, just a groundskeeper. And here we are with 52 acres, and we're getting a maintenance and groundskeeper, and that person's going to be hard pressed to make sure not only that they look nice, but that when there's an issue and the field is getting trampled down and we need to aerate, or the infield of the baseball and the softball field needs to be weeded and the clay needs to be added to it. And so there's a lot of other things and with the wind out here, all the tan bark that's going to fly through the place. We really need to think about how we're using those facilities and how much it gets used. So as far as open to the public, I agree, we probably need to look at the master plan. I have no idea. I won't even make a guess as to what that says, but.
Well, we know generally, it references being, community, open for public, but
No.
as far as the high school, I think that, we have so many K schools that I think we accomplished that mission.
And it depends on the community. Like, for example, at Amador, the tennis courts at Amador were always open to the public, even during the school day. And there was access on the side of the campus to get onto those tennis courts. So it could be that parts of campuses are available to people. I know that our baseball fields and our softball fields at Amador were not open to the public. And our grass field was not open to the public. Neither was the stadium or the field turf. I would really suggest that the stadium and the field turf be reserved for activities of the school and organized activities that are reserved and paid for through outside organizations because of the nature of the field and the turf. We have invested a lot of money in installing the field, and we want to make sure that we get our use out of it. And they're saying it's 8 to 10 years of use out of it. If we overuse that field, at the training, they said you got to be really careful, even when your football team is practicing. Don't always practice them in front of the, near the end zone. Move them around. Put them on the 50-yard line. Now go over there. Don't be always on the hash marks. Go over here and over there to make sure that you get even wear. When you go out there, there's infill in that field that's made out of recycled tires that moves like sand. And the more you're on one area, the more you wear down the fibers, and the infill kind of moves, and that's why we have a sweeper and a brush that has to go over that. And again, that speaks to maintenance and things like that.
Well, also, I think because there is training, maybe we should put together some sort of course that anyone that's going to use that field.
That might be a really great idea, actually. Before an organization uses it, that a couple of people from the organization be trained, and then make sure that in the contract it states that somebody who's been trained to use the stadium must be on the site at all times to ensure proper use of the field. And I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
It may be a pain for the organization, but if it saves our field and, make sure that there's no cleats on the track and there's no food or drink or gum, then that works for me.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind, we're going to have you back
I'm
in
sure.
a minute, but can we, I know there's a lot of people that want to talk to us, so if you want to come up and make a statement, or if you have some questions, we can keep them, just keep them limited so we can keep this moving. But
Okay, I'll be real quick. We did some homework from the last meeting about how many hours this actually translates to. So if it was the 20 hours and then the minimum of 2.5 hours. And I think we emailed it to a few people, but we basically would be using the field because we have 5 teams. In the month of July, this is K through 8 practice fields. We would be using it 22 days in July, 19 days in August, 13 days in September, 14 days in October, and 12 days in November at 2.5 hours per practice.
And you're talking just K-8 fields?
This is K fields, like for,
We've moved past that, we have to talk about the high school, so
Okay.
let's talk high school.
well, I can bring it up later, but I think this is an important point of what it would cost the organization for 2014, okay?
Again, that's not on the agenda, we'll talk about that at a later date.
Okay.
High school.
So as far as the high school is concerned, and a couple of the points that Ben made, it wouldn't be any problem for us to have a person who is trained and be there all day. I'm the president, I'm usually there, I open the gate, I close the gate. I'm like usually the last one to leave. We have all of our coaches kind of do the same thing. So and our board members, that wouldn't be an issue. We are asking that we could find out if we could use the field for sure during the month of September and October, 2 days in September, probably 2 days in October, or 3 days in September, 1 in October, but it's only 4 home games. That's the entire usage for us. And
Do you know what day?
we haven't been able to pick the days because I think they just posted the schedule.
For football?
For
Yeah.
football, they just
That's on
posted their
the website.
schedule, and obviously
Our
we're subject to their scheduling. So we would be on Saturdays. We don't have games on Sundays. We don't prefer to have games on Sundays. We look at that as a family day for people. And even our league doesn't want Sundays. So liability reasons, monitoring the use of the field, limiting Gatorade, gum, sunflower seeds, all that stuff would fall on our organization, and we would handle that. It wouldn't be a problem for us. Okay?
Okay, thanks. I think the other item that we have to address is facility, the fee that we charge. All along this process, we've kind of been looking at Manteca just because it's reasonable, size-wise, it's kind of the same. They charge $60 an hour for the, I'm sorry, no, a two-hour minimum, $60, right, $60 for the first 2 hours, $30 each additional hour
The stadium?
for the stadium.
Wow, it's actually a lot less than I would have thought.
So, that's what they charge. I don't know.
So, given Saturday, how many games you got, how many hours you did, 2.5 hours?
For a Saturday, we're there from 8 a.m. in the morning to
Probably 6.
9 a.m.
So I was talking about that taking break.
We have five games. We're usually there, you know, into the evening.
About 2.5 to 3 hours per game.
Yeah.
Just so you know, Pleasanton is $61.83 an hour.
Oh, that's
And
much
that's just a
easier.
flat rate.
That's much easier, 61.
And it's just a flat rate for every hour.
They must
Right.
apply a percentage.
So it's not even that much more in the Tri-Valley, which you would expect to be a whole lot more.
$61 an hour.
$1.83 more.
Oh, but we
Oh,
don't.
no, yeah.
I mean,
So I think that we're out in the valley, I think
well,
$30.
no, that's an hourly rate,
Yeah.
because this is $30 an hour after the first.
Right, but I mean, the first 2 hours, it's basically $30 an hour.
But it's,
Because the first 2 hours is $60, right?
yeah.
Because they
It's $30
they
an hour.
automatically charge you 2 hours no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yeah, it's a 2 hour minimum.
Pleasanton doesn't have a 2 hour minimum, so they just charge $61.83 an hour, but, I mean, it's essentially the same
Same,
price.
right.
There's no more. And I think that they come up with that Manteca and Pleasanton and all the districts come up with that because they look at how much does it cost to maintain a field? How much time does it cost after a game to, you know, do the maintenance that is needed to be done? And then I know that in Pleasanton, they put the money into an account that then is used to maintain fields.
Right, and that's, we've had that discussion, and.
Right.
I mean, we're not trying to make a profit, anything
No.
that we make is gonna go right back into it, and.
And I think a good way, and this is what Pleasanton does, at the end of the year, Pleasanton actually reports out how much of the money that they collected got spent on field maintenance, because they only use that account for field maintenance.
Right.
And usually there's very little money left in the account at the end of the year. So it really is kind of you know, tit for tat. We charge this much and we use this much. We're not making money. We're just looking to maintain the field, and they've done a really good job, which is why I think they went to 61 to 83. They probably were just trying to get as close to zero as they can at the end of the year. Because again, it just costs a lot of money to just maintain a field. And as far as warranty issues goes, it's what really it comes down to is on the district side of keeping a record of the maintenance that we do. And so I think that it would behoove us as a district to make sure that we keep appropriate records and then report out to the community at the end of the year. Look, this is what we charged you and here's what we ended up with in the end. We're not charging something over exorbitant.
You haven't been to the other meetings, and for those of you that haven't been, what we've talked about as a committee, the recommendation to the board is going to be is that this committee be a standing committee to review and report on just that. Money's coming in, talk about how to use those monies to repair the fields, and then we can report out and report to the board exactly what was done, how much it cost, what we have left in those accounts. Something that I wanted to add for the committee is seeing if we can separate each account by each sport. So keeping finances for soccer separate that would go towards the fields. Baseball, they have different. They use actually baseball diamonds is keeping those monies separate that we can use apply towards those. And also obviously a separate account for the high school.
I can do that.
Is that $61 that they charge inclusive of the custodial fee, or would there be is there an additional custodial fee?
There's an additional
There's
custodial daily rate, overtime rate for.
And how much did?
So for a weekday, it's $32.15 an hour, and for weekends, it's $49.43. But again, Pleasanton, the pay rate over there is a little bit higher.
Right, and what we're using, the figure that we're using is actually the rate for
27.
For here,
exact rate
27.
for here, yes.
yes.
27?
So, and in Pleasanton, and also when you have to have a custodial there every time you use the field.
I tried to call their facilities person today, and she wasn't in.
Okay.
That was a question I had, because I somewhat remember custodians coming in and opening up, going,
Makes sense. Check-out form.
checking in the middle of the day, especially if bathrooms are being used, to make sure that they replenish any supplies there, and then coming back at the end of the day to finish it out. So it wasn't an all-day, because organizations that are, nonprofit were, I think it would be very cost prohibitive for somebody to be there all day, and a lot of times what ended up happening is employees ended up sitting around.
I can understand that, but I mean, from an employee standpoint, don't you have to pay them a minimum? I mean,
We're required by union 2-hour minimum.
Right.
And that's what we
and does it
require.
have to be consecutive, or can we say, hey, come on and open up and come back?
No, it's every time we call them back.
So if we did
So
a morning person to come in and unlock and double check and do all this stuff, and they give it 2 hours, and then you have a person come back in the evening, a separate person, or even the same person.
It's still going to be
for
another 2
2
hours.
hours.
2 hours.
But you're looking at
That's
4
what we do
hours
now.
compared to a 15-hour
As
day.
opposed to
And I agree,
15.
there's no reason to have a custodian sitting there, whether they're using a baseball field or the athletic fields, unless he wants to watch a play, which is great, but we shouldn't pay him for that.
Yeah, so a lot of times what would happen in Pleasanton anyway is they would pay somebody to come open up. And then oftentimes on a high school campus, especially like one that we have that's so large, is that there was extra work that the district needed to have done and had money for overtime for other projects on the campus, that the person wouldn't actually leave. They would go onto the campus,
Do other stuff.
do whatever they're doing, and they would be paid because they had other work to do. But there were times where they didn't have other work and they would just come in the morning and then come back in the evening.
Like you're saying, we may end up in a position where we need to have someone there on Saturdays.
There may
because
be.
of the events that are going on.
The issue is we've never been on the high school site. We don't know what issues we're going to come up against, and we have a certain number of staff we're working with next year, and the work may be more than what we think it is. And so there may be some issues and things that need to be taken care of during the weekend that we don't know about yet.
We might actually have an employee under protection.
Just on the use of restrooms, we don't actually need use of indoor restrooms. Most high school facilities we visit to play games are usually 4 to 6 porta potties that are on the facility. Now, this is what they do in Tracy. There's 4 porta potties there, and usually the youth sports organization splits it with the high school. In other words, they pay half and the organization halves. But I don't know what your idea is about
The
it.
practice in the past, well, the practice currently, in the past and currently, no portable toilets in our facility. That's current policy.
Is there outdoor restrooms?
Yeah, there are restrooms at the stadium that are underneath the stands.
Oh, okay.
So that it's a building that's underneath.
So I think the original document said that we borrowed over from Manteca or wherever, said that we couldn't use those
Right, I know it
restrooms.
did, yeah,
We have probably highlighted that as a discussion too.
yeah.
Okay.